the stiff truth.
And welcome to the Stiff Truth. Oh, yeah, there it is, baby. Stiff as can be, throbbing, shaking. It's so rock hard today. How you doing?
Pulsating truth.
Yes, absolutely, dude. Bobby, you look great today. I'm Scott Castle. Of course, with me, as always, is Bob West. And we got a great show today. We got a lot of stuff that needs to be talked about. It's important stuff, very, very important stuff. But Bob, before we get into the weeds here, or the oozing of sour cream all over all of our topics today, what the hell are you drinking over there? Because Jesus, you're almost done with it, and that means it's probably a tasty one. Am I right?
Man, this is my very first ever 57 Chevy. I've never had one. It seems like it would be a common order, but I guess it kind of gets overlooked. I've heard of them.
Yes, I've heard of them too. I've never had one either. And honestly, when you had mentioned this today, I got to give you some props here. Like right out of the gate, I was making this, which I can tend to do, way too big of a deal. You know, I was like, God, thumbing through the bartender book. What are we gonna drink this week? Oh my God, I don't know what's gonna happen. And then right out of the gate, Bob's all 57 Chevy, like loud too, and like impressively loud. And I was like, oh, okay, all right.
It was in an authoritative tone.
yes. Yeah, it sounded like my dad, but yeah, good call here, because this is
It's a dandy.
This is a dandy right here. And I know, guys, already people are screaming at their phones, at their radios. Radios? No, that doesn't make any sense, does it?
These boys are having a pussy drink.
But again, the Stiffy's like, what is in this drink? How do you make it? Well, I'll tell you what, this one is it's pretty simple to make, pretty fun. A lot of good ingredients here, but you're going to want to start off with a full glass of ice. This one, I don't believe you're supposed to use the shaker, but I did. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, it's a shake.
I know, but
then pour in a chilled glass.
Yeah, but I think it's like it said like fill the glass up with ice and then shake it, but then pour.
Oh, and then strain. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
The reason why they do that is they want you to kind of eyeball the equal parts of the two well, we'll call them juices, but mixers, because there's not necessarily more than just pineapple juice and sour mix in this one. But either way, tall glass ice. Then you get yourself a half ounce of these lovely things here. You got a half ounce of vodka, half ounce of rum, half ounce of amaretto, half ounce of Southern Comfort, and a half ounce of orange liqueur, and then equal parts pineapple juice, sour mix. Shake that bitch up like who, Bob? Like
Michael
who?
J. Fox.
God damn right. And then give that a nice.
Or you just put the shaker in his hand and give it like 3 minutes and then come back and grab it from him.
You put the shaker in his hand, go take a dump, come back. It'll be good and frothy and ready to rock and roll. And then go ahead and strain this into a nice chilled glass with some ice, and boom, bam, bing, you got yourself a 57 Chevy. And you know what? There's a decent amount of booze in here. Now, it's not all like super strong booze. You got the vodka, the rum, of course, is, standard 40%, 80 proof.
And the SoCo.
Yeah. 35.
It's a little weaker.
This
I justify taking the second shot.
Exactly. This is the stiff truth. Don't be a punk bitch, Bobby. but then I think amaretto is like 30%. We'll just call it.
Light.
It gets a little bit lighter, but still it's boozy. But here's what I did, because again, I cheated and I used the shaker. I did half ounce of all the boozes, and then I went and did an ounce of each, the sour mix and the pineapple.
That's exactly the portions I did.
I figure we're not really rookies anymore. I mean, we're slightly wet behind the ear here, but I would say amateur professional, right?
Well, and I can also eyeball the shaker at this point with the ice and just like kind of figure out how much mixer I need at that point to say fill a low ball or a high ball glass. I'm pretty good at just eyeballing into the mixer. So once I had all the booze in there, that's why I was just like, you know what? I think an ounce of each is probably going to be about the right one. And if I try it and it's a little bit more tart than I would like, a little more potent, then I'll just go up a little bit on the pineapple juice and the sour mix. But it seemed like an ounce of each went pretty well.
I think so too. I think it's great. And then when I poured it into a glass, of course, I didn't do it like with the glass, then shake in the glass, but it came out like right at the top, like right at the top. I was like, whoa, that just couldn't have come out better. So good. But I'll tell you what, what's this flavor to you? Because I'm really getting the heavy on the pineapple, which is great. Don't get me wrong. I outside of orange juice, pineapple is probably my second favorite juice as a mixer. I don't know about you. The sweetness is there for sure from the amaretto and the SoCo. You could definitely taste that. I tell you what, though, you could totally fool me. Blind taste test, I would not be able to tell you that there's vodka, rum, and fucking amaretto and orange liqueur. Like there's 5 boozes in there. I'm not tasting all 5 of those. It's a good masker.
Yeah, no, it's a great cocktail. And I went ahead and threw a cherry in mine. Just a
bitch.
Just a 57 Chevy up. I don't know. I just thought cherry red and white 57 Chevy. I was like, I'm gonna throw a cherry in there.
You know, now that you say that, I just kind of burped a little bit, and I could see the lovely marrying of that nice Marciano cherry in there. Oh, that's good on you. Mwah, chef kiss.
You know, I wish I had 2 more.
Oh,
I should have lined up more of these for this, but you know, I never know if I'm gonna have to drive after the show, so I always try to play it a little safe.
Understood, completely understood. But yeah, this is a dandy, and I'll say it right here because of the pineapple juice and the flavors here. I say this is definitely a summertime drink. I don't know if I'd maybe appreciate these in the dead of winter, just because. Now, don't get me wrong. If the heater was on and I was sitting next to the fireplace, I'd chug them. You know what I mean? Just because they're very refreshing.
But no, this is definitely like a poolside drink.
Mm-hmm.
The bar at the pool sort of thing. The bar next to the pool. It's definitely one of those drinks that anyone that haven't tried a 57 Chevy, I would say put it on the to-do list. You do have to go out and make sure you have all this stuff. Most people aren't. Hell, I didn't even have everything. I had to go grab some new SoCo because I always have to grab more SoCo because I'm I don't know. It's that East Texan in me, I guess. I just like cheap sweet whiskey. I don't know.
SoCo's your crack. Let's just come out and say it, Bob. You know what I mean?
I got the SoCo like nobody's business.
You're in there like rubbing your fingers on the lid and rubbing it on your teeth.
Just and it's like $12 a bottle. I feel like a floozy when I'm drinking it too, like I'm less than. But
well, you did really good. What fantastic drink. I'm glad I'm at least made 2 here because this one I did suck it down quite fast here. Not as quick as you, but I mean, geez, this one is hard to put down. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, they are delicious. They're fairly potent. I recommend this one. This is one that you have to have on the ready. When someone comes over, like, I don't really know what kind of cocktail. I don't know. And you hand them the book and they're still like, I don't know. You know what? Fuck it. Give me that book back. You're getting a 57 Chevy.
That's exactly what I sound like when I'm indecisive. It's funny that you hit the nail right on the head there. I get kind of Jewy about it too. You know what I mean? So good on you. You know, I gotta tell everybody this here because this is something that I should have known this was going to be the case. But as you know, recently I switched up my part of my bathroom routine when it comes to the soap I use. I normally would just get like, you know, the Dove 3-pack body wash over at Costco for like, you know, $14-15 or whatever. I switched it up. Dr. Squatch is in the house. This all natural cold pressed soap, phenomenal smelling stuff, Bob. Now, and, you know, I get bombarded with the ads on TikTok for it. I was like, I got to try this shit. You know, I already use natural deodorant. I'm already a little bit hippie-ish. So I got to just get in here.
It's always some hot chick in the shower insinuating that if you use this soap, she's going to come to your house and suck you off.
You know, it's weird. That's what happened when I first used it. I was like, what are you doing in here? Remember that story we did a while ago when that poor man got a beach?
That poor married man.
Yeah, got a beach from some random drunk chick.
And like 5 minutes in, he decides to tell her.
Yeah, he's like, oh, wait. But yeah, no. The interesting thing is I thought it was my water, but when I was using the Dove for the longest time, I would get really nasty, dry, scaly skin on the back of like on my arms and everything, kind of where my triceps are and stuff like that. And I always had to just like get in with an additional chemicals and lotion that shit up after the shower.
Some hard Rocky Mountain water.
Absolutely. Right. And I was like, yeah, that's just the way it is. You know, it's dry out here in the mountains, whatever. Been on the Squatch now for 2 weeks. No dry skin at all. It feels phenomenal. Super silky, smooth skin, and it smells fantastic too, Bob. So I know that you haven't got in there yet, but Go ahead and get yourself a couple of bars. You're not going to be disappointed.
Oh, hell, it's my birthday. Give him a bar soap.
Hell. I'm telling you, man, it's good shit. Very good shit. So I've been very
I'll get
impressed.
in there. I've been looking forward to it. I'm a bar soap kind of guy. Always have been my whole life. Classic Irish Spring. I don't need that with aloe. I don't need that fresh scent. I don't need all that other shit. Just give me that green bar of Irish Spring. And that's my jam. Has been for like 30 some years. Right. So,
well, it makes sense that you're a bar soap guy too, because it's really hard to play like, picking up the soap in a group male shower with a bottle of body
I dropped
wash.
my loofah. I said I dropped my loofah.
Boys. Yeah.
Boys, it's on the ground. I'm bending over to get it now.
That totally makes sense.
Stay away.
Yeah. It always just slips right out of the top when he goes to squeeze. He's like, every time I try to get my grip a little bit tighter, the more it just good. Well, good. I don't know what your timeline is, Bob, but I want to hear reports back on the Dr. Squatch. Okay. Now, you may want to go in there and get some other kind of natural cold press bar soap, but don't do it. I wouldn't do it. Okay.
Well, you got to support small business. Who is not that small anymore, dude. I saw them at Walmart in Rio Rancho. So good for them. I'm sure they took it in the profit margins, but they're making up for it in bulk. So
dude, it's all about location, placement, and they got it right there. But the other thing that's really fun is they do have the theme soap too. They have Star Wars theme, they have Batman theme soaps. I mean, you can really get nerdy with it too. So I mean, they're doing great on their marketing. They're marketing to men and they're marketing to nerdy men. That's your money right there. Those are the people.
Well, those are the ones that shower.
Yeah.
So
I don't want to alienate all of our non-showering male listeners out there, but you're absolutely right, Bob.
I did. You gross motherfuckers need to shower. That's just nasty.
I digress though. Okay. I didn't mean to derail us here. I'm actually excited every time I go for the bar of soap in the shower. I'm like, yeah, dude. Now I still use my loofah. I lather that bitch up so I can get nice equal placement everywhere and not use the actual bar. That's actually a pretty nice little union there with the loofah and the bar soap. I'm enjoying it. But I'll tell you what, the smell is phenomenal. What am I using? I'm using like some kind of dark rum or something like that. The one right now, I got 6 of them and I bought 3, get 3 free. What a phenomenal deal. I'll have like this soap for the next 6 months. It's great shit. Now I'm going to get off the Squatch tip. I love that name, by the way, too. Are you ready to get into some fun stuff? Are you ready to supreme it up? You know what I mean?
I don't know how fun it is, but I'm ready to get into it.
Well, I mean, if there was sour cream oozing all over these people, maybe it'd be a little bit more appetizing. I don't know. But if you guys can't tell by my background, and for those in podcast land, those are taco supremes. And from Bob's background there, which might look familiar from last week, that I think is what building is that, Bob?
That is
some court
Hall
building
of Justice or whatever it is, the Supreme Court building.
We're going to talk about the Supreme Court. They've been very active lately, and they're about to go off season really soon, right? So they're just popping them out. They're just fucking banging out some cases right now. They're just and all of their glory right there. And we definitely want to touch on that. I know we had talked a little bit last week about the ruling that
the Marble Palace is what it's called. Sorry to interrupt. The Marble Palace is the Supreme Court building.
Right. And I know last week we talked a little bit about obviously probably the most impactful ruling as of recently with abortion. Obviously, that's caused a lot of uproar, rightfully so, and a lot of confusion too. Have you seen that, Bob? Like states that are kind of like the trigger states, some of them are like preemptively closing down abortion clinics and like maybe they shouldn't already, and like there's just like people don't even know what really is going on in some of these states too, which is pretty interesting because I guess if we really break it down here, and I want to get your feedback too, this is not necessarily the Supreme Court saying that abortion is illegal, obviously blanket. That doesn't make any sense. But what it is doing, it's basically kicking this back to the states, right?
Yeah, well, it's kicking it back to the states or to the United States Senate and House of Representatives. So what they've done is they've basically said that lumping in Roe v. Wade with current amendments back in the day wasn't the right way to do it. And we're saying that that's unconstitutional, even though it's 50 years of super precedent at this point, and they all said as much in their confirmation hearings.
Right.
All three of at least the three new ones. I didn't watch any of them before that. But so they're just saying that the federal law at the federal level, there is no law governing abortion as a right in any way. So they're basically saying, you guys want to make that a law, make it. And in fact, interesting fun fact, one of the campaign promises of Sleepy Joe,
I did that,
was to codify the right to abortion, which means to get it into law. Right. And so that the Supreme Court can't say that it's unconstitutional or whatever, unconstitutional, because they wrote and passed and made a new law, because the Supreme Court does not make new law. And I think there's a little bit of confusion here by people that don't remember their basic freshman year civics class. All the Supreme Court does is interpret the law, and they're the highest court of the land. There's many courts that interpret this law on the way up the ladder, and then there's appeals from both ways until eventually it makes its way to the Supreme Court, where they can either hear the case and make a decision on it, or not hear the case and defer the judgment to the next highest court that saw it before them and just simply agree with them. Yeah. Right. So they don't have to hear the case. But all they're doing in this instance is saying that we need to kick it over and you guys need to write this into law. Now, is it unnecessary? Probably. Did they have any reason messing with super majority or a super precedent after 50 years? Probably not. Do they have a little bit of standing in asking for this to be an actual law? I would say yes. They do. The Congress should get off their ass and make this a law. And if they can't make that happen, then what the fuck are we doing here anyway? Then if they can't make it a law, then the states need to make it a law, and we need to figure that out. But that's what's happening here. And I think there's been a lot of confusion is the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, and now it's not a right. Well, yeah, I mean, technically that's the fallout of what they did, but that's really what they did was they simply said that there's not a law that's written that says the United States government has the authority to grant that right to citizens in this country. That's what they're saying. Basically,
no longer is this a protected right for women, right? I mean, I think the biggest implication here, and in my mind, the way I see it here is the biggest consequence to what just happened is it basically removes the ability for people to have coverage at the federal level. Even when it comes down to insurance and things like that, right? When it comes to abortion, and then let's face it too. It also the federal kind of ruling, 50 years ago, kind of gave way to Planned Parenthood being everywhere too, and that being kind of a right. Like you need to have these kind of facilities in every single state because here we are. So I think those are in jeopardy. And now this is again one of the things where the lower you are on the socioeconomical ladder as well, the harder this is going to be now to actually get things done and get things done safely. Yeah, you know what I mean? This definitely affects they're going to make some poor babies out there that wouldn't have been born otherwise. I opened up with my little spiel about what they're doing. And I love your spiels, by the way. And it probably sounds like I really agree with them, but and I'll explain it like this is I don't agree with them even approaching this topic because of the precedent that's been going on in America. Well, so rolling it back, like what's next? That's the whole thing. What are you chasing after now? What's your agenda? Why are you looking at laws from 50 years ago? That's a strange thing to me. That seems a little bit more than just law. Well, that's a fantastic point because there was nothing that really, there was no genesis. There was no catalyst to this from the people. Yeah, of course, for the past 50 years, there's been very heated, people on both sides of the issue. But that just goes along with saying, like, okay, there's been a decent amount of liberal people that want, more abortion rights. And there's a large group of let's just call them retarded religious people that don't at all. Right. So that's been, but there's been no kind of what do we call it? No compelling event, so to speak. Right. And the near term that has given the Supreme Court justice is like, hey, you know what? We really need to revisit this 50-year-old case because everybody's talking about it right now. There was nothing like that. So even more, more credit to what you're saying. Like, where did this come from? Why is it coming right now? And what else is coming? Because it really seems, and this is the real shitty part. And I know you've heard this too, Bob, but you had just mentioned before, the job of the Supreme Court is to interpret the law, be very objective about everything, what's written, how it is, very, very, very black and white, so to speak, about what's on the books. And now it seems that there's political agenda here. You know what I mean? And it seems overwhelmingly that there's some conservative pushings here on the Supreme Court and people that are motivated to change this back to God's country, Bob. You know what I mean? And that kind of scares me a little bit here because that's not good for anybody, if you ask me. I know people will disagree. But
can I point out the fact that this was never God's country?
What? Wait, hold on. Wait, pow! My head just popped. It's even written on our money, Bob. You know what I mean?
Like literally this country was started to get away from religious intertwining church and state, kind of forcing religious views onto people and all that. And they came over here to be able to practice different religions than the status quo. And now here we are trying to circle back to indoctrinate people with one true religion. And I find it funny that they keep pointing to the Constitution when Ben Franklin and Thomas Jefferson were deists and weren't Christians like that. They believed in some sort of God that created everything, but then they just like kick back and there was no heaven or hell. There was just like, it has been created. You guys have the human experience and you do what you got to do. And that was kind of the deist belief back then. He was definitely not part of any of the organized religions. Either one of them.
Well, exception to that, I believe they were like Freemasons, like Knights Templar kind of shit, right? So they were definitely like, especially Ben Franklin, he was probably like in that secret society kind of shit. But yes, yeah, 100%. Well, I'll tell you what, the other interesting thing here, about the abortion ruling is, again, and this is just me, we've talked about this before, we're literally got blinders on to some of the biggest global concerns. And one of them we've talked about, I don't think on the show, but overpopulation. So what does this literally do, Bob? At the end of the day, you're like, you know what? Everybody's got to keep the babies. Everybody, stupid, crazy, poor, rich, doesn't matter. No more contraception, all this stuff that's, maybe down the pike a little bit here. But dude, you're literally, and I'm not saying everybody should like be like China used to be and just limit them to one child, but at the end of the day, we've already got an issue with too many fucking people and not enough resources. And now we're enacting rulings and potentially laws that it's going to make it that much harder for people to actually limit their seed. Oof, please, you cannot ask people not to have sex either. That's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen.
It was funny. I was watching this guy give an interview, and he normally like kind of pokes fun at undereducated far right MAGA people, right? Well, he'll ask them questions and they'll answer them, and they won't realize he's making fun of them, right? But
I've seen that guy. I like that guy. Yeah.
So,
he's good.
Anyway, he's talking to this guy, and he's like, "So with the overturn of Roe v. Wade, how do you feel about that?" And he's just like, "Well, I think that I was around when that decision was happening," because he's in his 70s. He's like, and I didn't agree with it then, and I don't agree with it now.
I saw that one, yeah.
And so then he said, okay, so you would think like, would it be okay then if they just asked, all the men until they get married to just go in and get a vasectomy until they get married and they decide to have children? He's like, well, no. And he's like, well, why not? And he's like, well, that's because then you have government getting control over your body.
Oh, wait a minute.
Like, didn't realize that he was clowning on himself, but I just thought that was funny. I was just like, there's just a lot of really, like, I hate to say it, but kind of conservative evangelical propaganda over this nonsense. I don't really think it has to do with anything other than pulling heartstrings to get votes. I don't think it really does anything. I don't think there's a means to an end or what this benefits, because if it was really like a pro-life issue, then it wouldn't be just from conception to birth, and then you're fucking on your own at that point. We're not going to expand Medicare in our state. We're providing, or that we're getting rid of these abortions. We're not going to help these single mothers that have been abandoned by these men or rapists or incest people or whatever it is. We're not going to help them after the baby's born. So it's just like, well, then where's the true agenda there? So I see a lot of conflicts in this ideology in general, and I have a really hard time with it. Again, it's something that's been around so long and been part of our stuff that I think that we should just, that precedent has been set. And since it's not, I think that Congress needs to act. There's a lot of pro-life or pro-choice conservatives out there. And I think that number is being greatly underestimated, and I think it's really going to cause a little bit of what is that? A little bit of unexpected repercussions from this decision that's coming down from the GOP. I think that there's a lot of assuming that there's a huge win here this year, but I think when the voting comes out in November, I think that the voters are probably going to speak pretty loudly on this issue.
Well, I'll tell you what here, and I know this is not the concern of the Supreme Court or whatever, but this could be, there's two things. If Trump announces that he's going back for the presidency before midterms, that's going to hurt a lot of Republicans that probably were a shoo-in to either keep their seat or take seats in the Senate, and House of Representatives. And then this right here too. This is unnecessary blowback, so to speak, that's going to happen when they thought it was going to be a huge win, like you were saying. And that's the thing. The underestimation of people that are right and left of center is the biggest fault of the extremes on both ends. You know what I mean?
We talk about it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, but this is like the large majority of people are rational, kind of even-keeled, good people, but they're not very noisy. We've said this time and time again, and I think that's the assumption that they're running with on the right now. That, again, I guess if you really have to really split hairs here, I'm more conservative than I am liberal on a whole. I mean, most social issues, obviously, I'm very liberal, but making the assumption that I'm a little bit more fiscally conservative, making the assumption that I am a pro-life person and this is a huge win for me, that's a horrible assumption. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of people are in the same boat here. And here's the other thing. I think a lot of people are being silent right now. I mean, not outcrying, not going crazy. So again, it seems like a really big win for the people that are being noisy. And yes, I kind of agree with you. I think this might really fuck up the right's chance of really dominating power. And here's the thing. I think before this, and Jesus Christ, if Trump does announce that he's going for the White House again before voting in November, he's basically nailing the coffin for the Republican Party for the midterms, which is interesting to me. I don't think he gives a shit. You know what I mean? Because it's really not him and the Republican Party as a whole. It's him versus the Republican Party, and him versus the Republican Party and the liberals too. He's on an island on his own, and that's how he always is. But interesting how I think the Republicans could have just slid right into having all the power, and they're going to fuck themselves. So interesting.
Yeah. And I agree 100%. I think the true silent majority is the left of center and the right of center, Democrats and Republicans, that decide elections, right? Because whichever 10% left or right votes for the other side is who's going to win, right? So I just personally know a lot of pretty conservative people that are pro-choice. Yeah. And it's not even that they're necessarily a staunch pro-choice, because I really hate that dichotomy there, right? There's more than just a binary pro-choice, pro-life. You're either for abortion, you're against, and I'm for women. Right. That's what I am. I'm for women, and I'm for children getting put in good situations and having the best chance to succeed. So I'm pro all of that. Now, am I pro-abortion? We talked about it in the show. Not in all cases. I'm not. Am I pro-choice in all cases? Not necessarily in all cases. I'm not. Right. But there's a lot of fucking gray area in there. So with all of that gray area, that means that the solution has to be very nuanced. So when the conservative and liberal media and the extreme right and left go out there and they start pushing all this rhetoric about you're either pro-life or and you're with God, or you're pro-choice and you're the devil. You know what I mean? Or vice versa. You're the left will say that you're you're pro-life, so you're an idiot. You don't care about the people that are actually living.
You don't care about women.
Unborn babies, right? More than you do the people that are carrying them.
And they'll always jump to the extreme, like, oh, I'm pro-life. Also, great. So you don't care if like somebody gets raped, and that, you're like, no, wait, hold on. It's like, what I mean?
Exactly.
They always jump to the extremes to kind of prove that you're the asshole. You know what I mean?
There's so much gray area, and because of that gray area, that's why I'm pro-choice. That's why I think that the decision should be left between a family and their doctor, and that or their priest, or get all the circle the wagons. Get everyone involved in this decision, because it's likely going to be the toughest decision you'll ever have to make, right? 100%. So who are we to try to statute that into law? Like, who are we to try to decide what's best for everyone in a blanket way? And I think that that's fucking irresponsible, and I think it's retarded to try to do it that way. We need to bend to the circumstances of the people and have that flexibility. And this is why I say that this needs to be the ability for states to ban it is what needs to be codified. Yep. Not to say that abortion is just legal. They just need to protect people from getting them if they do get them. Right. And then states can kind of like work within those confinements. Well, we're not going to fund any clinics in this area. Maybe the states can say, we're not going to opt in to any federal programs with abortion clinics. Maybe we'll opt into a transportation system to get people to another state because we don't believe in that in our state.
Right.
Maybe there's other nuanced ways to handle it.
Or they beef up funding for adoption centers and things like that. Like, whatever they want to do, there's got to be some kind of give and take here, so to speak. But we are talking about the American government, so we'll see what's going on. Now, I did want to, just to kind of interject here with rules of just the show and everything like that. That's 2 retards that we've dropped, 2 retardeds
today.
Yeah, me 1, you 1, and I just said it twice again, so we're done. We've reached our retarded limit.
Can we get a ticker?
I was thinking while you're talking, I heard you say it too. I was like, well, I said retarded earlier. He said it. I was like, I think that's enough for the show.
It's like this South Park episode where they drop the F-bombs. It's like 115 F-bombs or something.
Oh, we can say retarded all we want. It's fun. But at the same time, no, you're absolutely right, Bob. This is going to be interesting right now because it's a race against time right now, in the sense where if Congress, which I don't think they're going to, if they can't get their shit together and do something and get law on paper, then you're going to have a bunch of states that are going to make it outright. And the ones we're talking about, our good friend Taint. Is he still around? Taint's still around. Is he Taint Reeves? Yep. Mississippi. I'm just going to say Mississippi.
I say it all sad. Yeah, he's still
yeah, he's still there. I called him last weekend. But yeah, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Utah. I mean, the usual suspects. It's usually, it's the same places where you can't ship like alcohol. Those states or whatever that don't allow that, those are probably going to be the first ones that outlaw. And that's just,
it's the same place that you don't look for jobs in.
That's right. It's those states. Unless it's a fully remote position. You're like, wait, where are they headquartered? You're like, fuck that. But again, it's interesting, dude, because I know the inaction seems to be like the, the thing of Congress in general. So I don't know what's going to happen here, but the Supreme Court has been busy in other respects too, which I think is interesting too, because we're sitting here saying like, that's very polarizing. It's very political right now. I will say though, I do agree. Which one is it? With the Kennedy versus Birmingham school district one. Now, everybody probably remembers this one. I don't want to say it's a couple years ago or whatever, when this high school football coach got in a shitload of trouble, got fired from his public school coaching job for praying with his students. Voluntary.
I was going to say, was that mandatory or
no? Voluntary praying after games or before games.
It's normally after.
We've seen this time and time again. Every single coming of age football movie too has this. You know what I mean? It's like it's a thing, right? So, but yeah, this was interesting because they did rule in his favor here, so it's totally cool. Voluntarily, and I'm gonna just keep highlighting voluntarily because that's the key thing. Yeah, I think that's the key measure here. Because here's the other thing: like if they didn't rule this way, then I don't know what you do with having this like freedom of religion idea, you know what I mean, and freedom of speech and all that kind of stuff. Because if you voluntarily want to ignore saying the Pledge of Allegiance, if you voluntarily want to, if you need to voluntarily let other religions pray like wherever they are, as long as they're not infringing anybody else's right or mandating anything for groups of people that don't feel that way, I mean, this is fine. I was totally okay with this one. What about you?
So, I came from a football family. I played lots of football. And praying in the middle of the field after the game is a very common thing, at least when I was growing up and in the mid 90s. So it was always voluntary. I mean, you always had an eclectic group of people in the team. Most of them were religious, but you had a mixture of, Catholics or variations of Protestants. You might have a couple of Muslims on your team. It was whatever.
Whoa.
I know.
Okay, I'm going to let it slide. I'm going to let it slide.
So, and I'm not a religious guy. I didn't grow up in a religious family. And so when they'd go in to pray after the game, you either go in or you don't. And a lot of times the different religions or non-religious folks would go in with their religious buddies to support them. Like just you go in there with them, you kneel with them, you let them do their thing, you support their religion or whatever. And then you get up and you go. You don't have to like bow your head. You don't have to like pray with these guys. You can still show support. It was always optional. No one really cared either way about that. The coaches didn't care at all. Honestly, it was always a player led. When I was around it, is there was always like the most religious couple of guys would always say, hey, you guys want to go pray? So-and-so got hurt. Let's thank God for all the people that didn't get hurt, yada, yada, yada. And it was that sort of a thing. So I have no problem with that. And I grew up around that. That was just normal. It was just normal life for me. Now, obviously, if it was mandatory, I'd have a real problem with that. I don't like, us forcing religious beliefs onto people. But I agree with the decision in this case. And I think that the school should tell them, hey, we got some complaints. So you need to make sure that everyone knows 100% that if you don't want to, go ahead and go in or whatever. There's no hard feelings.
No shaming, right? Yeah, you can't. Yeah, you got to be like, this is have to be completely, legitimately, genuinely. I'll just say a bunch of words that means like this really has to be voluntary, and in any sense of the word.
Yeah. Then so obviously some Karen cried, and then this guy got fired. That's bullshit, right? Yeah. So yeah, I agree with this. I'm glad that they saw it this way because people deserve to have the right. I mean, if you want to have your religious circle over there and do your thing, that's fine. But just know that day that you have like a pagan on your team, and he wants to go like bring a dead chicken to practice and shit, you're gonna have to let him.
he's all bringing the chalk out to the field and like doing a big pentagram, bringing candles here. Why do you have like a cut off chicken? I cut off.
It's like the guy, the voodoo guy in Major League, right?
Yeah.
Bobo in his locker.
Exactly. Well, and here's something, and this story, here's my big takeaway. Okay. And you had just mentioned it. What kind of real piece of shit is this? We'll just call her Karen, right? Is this fucking piece of shit that literally got so offended by somebody else voluntarily praying to God with voluntary, participation by students. Like, I think if anything, there needs to be a ruling from the Supreme Court that minding your own fucking business is a law. And if you infringe on that, if you break this law, we're gonna fucking like let like vultures like eat your asshole or something like that in a public square.
Let me ask you this.
Sure, go ahead.
You ever been to a church event and say let's say it's a funeral, wedding, or even just like a Catholic service or something? Specifically, I say Catholic because it's kind of the weirdest norms for church for a Protestant to see. Mm-hmm. Like if you go in and you're non-denominational, you're a Protestant, you go into a Catholic church for the first time, especially if they're like a Spanish-speaking Catholic church or something like that.
Jesus, yeah,
right?
Yeah.
It's pretty hardcore. I remember going in for a funeral for schoolmate of mine back in high school, and it's the first time I'd ever been to a Catholic church in general. But it was Our Lady of Bethlehem, I think it was, in Berlin, and it was a Spanish-speaking church, right? So it's the whole thing is in Spanish, and then it's the knee pads come down, and then it's like you're down, you're up, you're down, you're up. And to me, like everyone's chanting and shit because I don't understand what they're saying. And I'm just kind of like going with the motions, but I'm not obviously like praying or doing anything with these guys. I'm just kind of hanging out and showing my respects. But I'm like going through the motions and showing my respect for their religion as well. And but at the same time, I'm looking up and looking around at everyone thinking, is there anyone else that doesn't know what the fuck's going on? Hey, and I'm like looking for that other guy Catholic there that's like, I don't know.
Deer in headlights.
The
guy that's not like getting up, sitting down, and getting on his knees every 5 seconds and like mumbling like weird, like dead like phrases of Latin and shit like that. You're like, what's happening here? You know, it's funny that you mentioned that. I'm Catholic, and I still am very confused when I'm in church. Now, I'm not a church goer, but when I was younger, I was always that deer in headlights. What the fuck is going on? Because I never really participated a lot, and I never even took time to learn. I just knew here comes a bunch of crazy, like almost like military style, like up, down, whatever. You're like, what are we doing here? I will tell you this though, like, actually sacrament and taking the blood of and the body of Christ. That was fun because I got to eat. That was cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, when I was a kid, I was just like, oh, this is like snack time, right?
Yeah, snack time at church. That's exactly what I thought. I was like, look, I get some grape juice typically or whatever it is.
And a stale ass unsalted cracker. That's
stale saltines or something like that. Yeah, fantastic shit, but interesting, very interesting stuff. But yeah, again, digressing away from the religious conversation here. Me and Bob, both church-going men, obviously, as you can tell.
We're very devout church-going men.
I'm gonna pivot back to Beef Supreme Court over here. Okay. The beefy, cheesy Gordita Supreme Court and some other things that they've been super busy, bro. They've been popping them off lately.
Except for they're out of Mexican pizzas until further notice.
Oh, you know what? I was gonna bring this up once. Okay. Well, twice actually. I have to bring it up twice because I went to Taco Bell twice, sold out of fucking Mexican pizzas both times. Different Taco Bells, mind you, too. This is like the chip shortage of 2021. You know what I mean?
Call it what it is and say they're seasonal like the McRib, and we'll all accept that.
Yes. And then all of a sudden we'll be like, hey, the Mexican pizza's back. Did you hear that for the 23rd time in a row?
April to June, Mexican pizzas. After June, you're fucked until next Easter.
Nothing says springtime like, you know, some rain, some flowers growing, birds chirping, and Mexican pizzas. You know what I mean? Like that. Oh, and it hugs right around fucking Cinco de Mayo too. Beautiful. I love that, Bob. I like what you're doing over there. Good stuff, buddy. But another thing here, I thought this one was pretty interesting in the sense of like getting back to politicizing the Supreme Court. Where are we at, buddy? Oh, yes. West Virginia versus the EPA. You know, you heard about this one. And then we also have Biden versus Texas. These are both pretty interesting too, right? I think they both are, again, not really all leaning towards the conservatives or what have you, but it is interesting, maybe not so much interesting that the Biden versus Texas is a 5-4 ruling, and then the West Virginia is a 6-3 one. But West Virginia versus EPA basically says, hey, I don't think the federal government has any fucking right to monitor or basically mandate standards for power plants when it comes to carbon emissions and pollution and things like that. So that's interesting. That's a couple steps backwards, if you ask me. I'm not a big fan of that one. But the Biden versus Texas, I'll be honest with that. I have almost no emotion one way or the other about the immigration one. What are your thoughts, Bob?
Yeah, because honestly, it was still going down. They just said, you know, let's keep these asylum seekers here, because if you're turning them away, you could be turning them back to debt, the very thing that they're trying to ask for asylum from. So I understand why that is, but this particular thing had no interest. Again, the court didn't care about people's feelings. The court didn't care about any of that. What they're supposed to be judging is if the Department of Homeland Security, which is where I think that border control lives, do they have the authority to grant this, right? Does the federal government have authority to grant this under the laws as it's written? And they decided that it did. Now, I'm actually looking that up now to see which four assholes said that it didn't, because this has been going on for like 100 fucking years. So I'm like, this has been established law since forever. So is this another one that there are four people that were really like let's try to overturn this one again. So I was just trying to see if I could see which justices voted which way. And I don't know if they
public domain.
I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of think, and I'm going to be honest here, I kind of think it shouldn't be. That's just me. You know what I mean? I don't think like people should be able to gun for Supreme Court justices and try to go fucking assassinate them.
Yeah, it does the person that writes the majority of the decision and the person that writes the assent. What is it called?
So this is
the interpretation, the dissent's conclusion, right?
Okay.
And so in this one, Justice Alito wrote the conclusion. So, I mean, I have a pretty good idea who those four were. Alito, Thomas. Were the other two? Is a mixture of Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, or Barrett. Is it
Coney Barrett or Barrett Coney?
Coney Barrett.
Oh, okay, good. I'm glad we cleared that up because I know me and you were confused about that for a little while. Either way, doesn't really matter. She's there. Okay. Well, I mean, and here's the thing. My own thing, the reason why I said I don't really have a lot of emotion in this one is like, you're going to send them back to Mexico versus the United States, keeping them in the United States during this process. Well, I can kind of understand both sides of the table. It was my issue. It's like, okay, they're already here illegally. Now they're going to.
Sorry. It does say. So it was Barrett.
Yep.
Thomas, Alito, and Gorsuch. Kavanaugh was actually the one that decided this one and voted with John Roberts and the liberal justices.
There's more to this man than just liking beer, huh? Is that what you're saying?
Who'd have thought he was the most reasonable of the three?
Wow. See, hey, well, I think that's honestly, no bullshit, no kidding around. This is a shining example of like somebody proving us wrong, right? And kind of what we were saying here. I thought Kavanaugh would definitely be one of the dissenters. Interesting. But again, getting back to what I was saying, the reason why I don't really feel like I have a dog in this fight too much is because I see both sides of the table. You know what I mean? In the sense, like, you're here illegally. Okay. Whatever you're running away from, illegal. Try to get in the fucking Switzerland. Okay. First of all, you know what I mean? Without them like just deporting you for not having millions of dollars. We're not the shittiest country when it comes to like who can be here, but you're already here illegally. Now you're going to hang out while you're waiting for your court case and suck up resources and not pay taxes and all kinds of shit or whatever it is. I can see that side of it. The other side of it is like, well, you don't want to send, like you were saying, well, you don't want to send them right back to death. Well, a lot of these people are coming from Central America. So sending them back to Mexico is not really sending them right back to where they're running away from. With that being said, Mexico is not the most even area to be hanging out in as somebody that's an illegal alien too. I think that's a pretty shitty place to be in general. If you're not in like one of the beach resort communities, like fucking Cancun or something like that, not a really cool place.
Yeah, Mexico's rough, dude. It's like hanging out in St. Louis.
Yeah. Hanging out in St. Louis right after the Chiefs lost. You know what I mean? Like that kind of St. Louis. Yeah, absolutely, bro. No, not the Chiefs. Oh, they're not there anymore. The Rams aren't even there anymore.
No, I don't know. The Chiefs losing would probably be pretty big there.
I think they just use any kind of reason. You know what I mean? It is what it is, right? Because it still is Missouri. That's Missouri.
I just know that it's like the murder capital of the.
It's pretty hardcore. You know that, and where you like to hang out at the airport, Detroit. Two of our favorite spots in the country.
So, yeah, I mean, that is what it is. So basically that all got changed with, I think it was Title 42. It was a Trump initiation, which actually that he did during COVID, that basically is like, if you're waiting for asylum, you can't come in. And it was more like under the pretense of, because of COVID. Biden came through, COVID's still going on. They actually like left that in up until recently. Did they even try to change that? And then obviously Texas sued the administration over it. And then here we are. So I believe that's all stemming from that Trump immigration change that was made in like, I don't know, 2019, I think it was.
Yeah.
So beyond all of that, the Supreme Court's been busy, dude.
Yeah, very busy.
We don't really get a whole lot of it. I mean, obviously the Dobbs versus Jackson's was huge, but the New York gun law, which was what, Kennedy? No, that was the other one. So sorry.
so sorry. Oh, Jesus Christ.
There we go.
There we
New
go
York State
again.
Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin. All right, so this is basically saying that requiring me to have a concealed carry to conceal my gun in public is unconstitutional.
Mm.
I guess federally, sure, but what they did say was that New York State doesn't have the power in New York's constitution to enforce that, which is very strange for a Supreme Court to kind of get in there. They could have just said, no, New York needs to figure that out. If you truly believe that that power needs to be within the state, you'd probably not hear that case and just defer it to the state. Right. But they did meddle in that. And then that's interesting. So, this gun fanaticism thing, I'm a gun owner and been around guns my whole life. And it's funny because just today I was in the car with my son and I was like, I'm a pretty conservative dude. There's only really a handful of things that stop me from, voting GOP all the time. Most of it's the religious, overzealous stuff and intertwining church and state stuff I don't like. I don't like the wanting to meddle into medical care. And even now the Supreme Court's talking about, or at least Clarence Thomas is talking about, well, let's get into gay marriage and contraceptives next. And he's publicly said that. I'm like, wow, dude.
Just getting into people's business.
Yeah, I just don't understand. What I mean? The Republican parties that I grew up with when I was a kid would never advocate for the government making decisions in our personal lives over anything. So it's very alarming.
We needed to go kill the Ruskies. That's what we needed to do when we were born.
It was all about fiscal responsibility and national security. Right.
Exactly.
And that's totally changed now. And then I told him, and the other one really is this gun fanaticism. I just don't understand the fascination with guns and gun violence. And I'm a gun owner.
Yeah.
I love my guns.
It's interesting.
But I just, that's really the three things keeping me, because over that fiscal responsibility, focusing on small government, protecting your nationalist interest abroad, making good deals and not fucking the future over with other countries when you're making trade agreements and all this other shit. I'm actually on board with all of that.
Right.
Where I get lost is with all these heartstring issues that they started to use about 20 years ago to get new voters. That's really kind of what lost me for voting for them most of the time.
Well, it's interesting too, with everything that's happened very recently with guns being out of control. You know what I mean? Lack of responsibility of gun ownership, not on a whole, but just, again, enough to where we're getting.
It doesn't take very many when it's guns. They make a big mess.
They make a lot of noise and a big mess. Absolutely. But it is interesting to me that they vote this way when you would think that consciously, currently in the present time, you'd probably do everything possible to make sure there's some checks and balances for who's got a gun and who's concealing a weapon, I don't know, in public places and things like that. You know what I mean? So that to me is very interesting. Not a big fan of this one in the sense that, again, in theory, in a perfect world, I really wouldn't have an issue with people not having a permit for concealed carry in a perfect world, but we are far from a perfect world.
Well, and I don't even know, at least it should be left up to the state.
Yeah.
I would even say that it needs to be left up to the county or city that you live in. And it reminds me of one of my favorite Westerns, right? Tombstone.
Oh, it's a great one. The OK Corral, huh? We're getting in there, huh?
We're not saying you can't have guns. We're just saying you can't have a gun in town.
That's right. There you go.
That's it.
Yeah.
Why in the old Wild West is that okay? But to have to get a permit to hide your shit like a gangster in your waistband is out of line. Now we've crossed the line.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the idea of the public not knowing that somebody is carrying a gun in this day and age, when what's happened in the current climate, to me seems a little bit odd. You know what I mean? You'd think you'd want to give everybody a heads up on who has a gun right now out in public. That just makes sense to me. I can't get behind the oh my God, you're fucking with my rights thing right now with that kind of shit. Again, like we talked about episodes ago. it's all fun and games until as a whole, we prove that we don't really deserve some of the liberties that we get. You know what I mean? Like there's a certain element of like, you got to suck it up and take one for the team, so to speak.
I'll tell you, some things we're just not smart enough to have.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I don't have a spaceship. I'm just not smart enough to have one, and I accept that. I'm not gonna try to build a ghost spaceship online with parts. So
you really should, though.
Trace it to me.
If you were my friend that had a spaceship, though, I think that'd be really fucking cool. I'd brag about it to everybody. It's like my friend Bob, he's got a spaceship. It's pretty fucking badass. So, love the guy.
I think another important one to kind of point out, this new religious side of the court is Carson v. Macon, and that's the one where people probably heard it on the news, and it's about basically the Supreme Court says that funding can, like federal and state funding, I think it is, or just federal. Either way, funding can go, public funding can go to religious schools, like a Catholic school, right?
Interesting. Yeah.
Which I don't know. I think if you want to tag your shit as religious like that, you have to take your lumps and not be able to get public funding for people that fund that public funding that aren't part of your religion.
Well, so isn't this in essence though double dipping too? Like you don't pay taxes already,
right?
You know what I mean? And now you're gonna take tax money? Now fuck you, fuck that.
How about this? If your church is affiliated to a religious school, then your church is no longer 508c eligible. How about that? I bet you that fucking money will stop going to those schools.
Yeah, true.
Which, by the way, true. I think churches should get taxed. I don't know.
Dude, 100%. There's no dude, to me, that this isn't on like the docket for the Supreme Court or for Congress. Like, hey, where can we get shitloads of money to help us eke our way out of this ridiculous fucking exactly. And we're in the biggest deficit that we've ever been in by far. And that's not even a question. Like, hey, maybe we should go ahead and tax these people. They have the money. They don't need Porsche 911s. You know what I mean? To be the pastor car. Now, seriously, dude, that to me is very interesting. And I think that's another show in entirety there. Just speaking on like, I'd actually like to do some research, Bob. Like, where the fuck did that come from and why? Like, honestly, like who, there was some hardcore religious people that came up with that one. You know what I mean? Like, hey,
well, yeah,
by the way,
I'll fund your campaign and your party as long as you keep this law legal so that we don't have to pay corporate taxes on our donations.
That's a lot of money. That is
so
a lot
much
of
money. It's billions of dollars.
Think about Joel Osteen and those other like just crazy hypocritical mega church guys and shit like that, dude, that are almost billionaires that have paid zero in taxes.
Their cut. Imagine the retained earnings the church has.
Yeah. Well, think about it too. That the largest landowner in the world is the Catholic Church. Pretty fucking crazy. Pretty fucking crazy. But again, I digress. I've digressed a few times in this show because I don't want to go down that road too much.
It's funny how these Supreme Court cases have sent us all over the place. And it just kind of tells me that like things aren't great right now with our checks and balances. Things aren't great right now with our dysfunctional government that struggle to get the most simplest common sense laws passed. Things aren't great. Like even right now, Joey said, like, go ahead and
I love that Joey, like he's old chum from college.
Joey said to go ahead and cut out a filibuster exemption and codify abortion rights. I honestly, I don't think they'll ever get Manchin on board with that. I think if he did that, he'd never get reelected.
Yeah, I feel you, dude.
There might be a win there because Susan Collins might.
Yeah,
I mean, she's already said that she feels like that Brett Kavanaugh burned her to her face. And like on the stand when she asked him specifically about Roe v. Wade being precedent, right? So she said that in an interview that she feels like he misrepresented his beliefs to her.
So was it the clap? Was it gonorrhea? Like, how did he burn her?
With a antibiotic resistant super clap.
Jesus Christ, that sounds supreme is all I gotta say. Very nice. Well, I'll tell you what, Bobby, we are approaching the spot where we are just about out of time. I know the bearer of really, but you should have seen your face just now. It went from glee to ultimate depression and sadness.
Well, it went from good because I'm out of 57 Chevy over here. So
that's true. That's true. We do need to re-up, and this is a dandy. I'm probably going to enjoy maybe a couple more of these today. That's all I'm going to say, Bob. I don't have to drive anywhere. I made sure of that. I typically don't drive. In fact, I typically don't leave the house, if you want to be honest. I'm kind of a hermit. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Unless it's to Costco to get their wonderful selection of booze.
Well, yeah. I mean, I got to go to church. That's my church right there. It's got to go to Costco. Oh my goodness. Well, I got to tell you, Bob, great conversation. And again, we're in an area. I love what you said, Bob. Things are not great. But they're supreme. Are they not? You know what I mean? So it's kind of where we're at right now.
They are chalupa supreme, my friend.
Listen, brought to you in part by Taco Bell.
Cheesy gorditas, crunch steak supreme.
Brought to you in part by Taco Bell and Dr. Squatch. But no, great conversation. I will say this too. I don't like to say this too much anymore because we're not like, rookies in the sense that we just started doing this order, but this is episode 99. So the reason why I do mention that is our next episode, my friend, will be episode 100. That's right, baby. The C note.
We made it. I can't believe
it. Absolutely, buddy. Talk about some badassery right there. Very proud of you. Very proud of myself. I'm having the best time doing it.
We're like 5% of the way to Joe Rogan numbers.
Yeah. We're getting there. We're eking our way through here. But we definitely want everybody to join us for the centennial episode, so to speak. We're going to be getting in there. And I think it's going to be next week. I don't have any reason to like postpone or anything like that. So we're going to be getting down. We're going to have 100 here. And it's going to be pretty exciting stuff, Bob. So I want to thank everybody again for joining us here. We love our listeners. We love the stiffies out there. Guys, continue to check us out on the podcast platforms. Rate us on Apple Music. Check out our YouTube video. Bob West, Scott Castelnova, keeping it stiff, throbbing. There it is, Bob. There it is, Bobby. And until next time, guys, we love you. Take care.
See ya.